everyone. How's it going? Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you are. I hope everyone's doing okay. My name is Tania, and I am from the UK. So it's about evening time here. It's about 8:30. That's why I have some of my really bright studio lights on. And hi, oh my goodness, so many comments. So good to see everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. So, today we are going to be doing some mixed media, and I'm going to be showing you some basic mixed media techniques, the way I like doing it in my own style. Oh, Marsha, hey, my lovely. So, I can see that we're streaming on both Facebook and on YouTube as well. I can see the comments. I'm going to do my best to answer them. And if I miss anything, we have Lydia who is watching in the comments. She'll be answering any of your questions, sharing any links, and just let me know if there's anything that you need. I will do my best to keep an eye on. Oh, Iram. Oh my goodness. This is so nice to see some really friendly, lovely, familiar faces. So I'm gonna switch my camera around and stop waffling, and so that we can start talking about things. And if you guys have any questions while I am talking, just put them in the chat. I will do my best to answer them. We also have Aram, who is on the Altenew design team. She does a lot of really amazing stuff. And now I'm kind of scared because we're doing some watercoloring. And Aram is the queen of watercoloring, and so is Lydia. Um, but I will do my best. So today we are going to be making an art journal. And if somebody could just give me a thumbs up and let me know that you can hear me fine, then I can continue. And we are going to be working with the Wild Flora stamp set, which is one of my favorite stamp sets. And it comes with a matching die as well. And today we're going to be doing some mixed media. And if you have never tried mixed media, then this might be something really great for you to try. So I'm just going to set this stamp set to the side. We'll work on this later. And what I have here is I am working on a very thick piece of cardstock. Perfect. Everyone says that they can hear me loud and clear. And I have a very thick piece of cardstock here. And I'm going to be making something called a masterboard or a motherboard, or there's many different ways of saying it. And you'll see me reaching around to the side. I've got everything ready to show you guys. And we're going to be working with a Wild Flora stamp and die set. And I've got some bits ready here. I'm going to be also using the Autumn Festival watercolor markers. Now, I like to store my watercolor markers upright because they are very highly pigmented, which means that they're extra juicy. And I adore them. As anyone who's familiar with my work will know that I love using these watercolor brush markers. Like, if I could, I would use them on every project. And what I would highly suggest is every time you get a new medium, like a coloring medium, some watercolors or watercolor brush markers, I would say always swatch them. Because when you swatch them, you learn how they work, what kind of pressure you need to apply, um, how the colors work with each other. And I love doing these because it really helps me to get familiar with the products, and I know how bright they are. I will know how they work together. And most of all, it will give me ideas. And swatching is something that I personally really love doing, especially if I'm not feeling very creative. Now, if you've watched any of my videos, I'm always talking about different ways on how you can be creative by not really needing to finish a whole project. Because we put these ideas into our head, thinking that, oh, we need to finish like a whole project in one sitting. Whereas being creative can just be taking some time, getting to know your supplies. So that swatch literally did not take like 2 minutes for me to do. Yeah, I love that green as well. I don't know which green you're talking about, but this bright one is called Just Green. So this is from the Autumn Festival brush marker set, and this sage green is called Sea Forest. So what I'm doing is I like to make art journals because I really love mixed media, and I'm going to be chopping this piece of paper down. So don't be intimidated by the size. So oftentimes I hear that if someone is a card maker, they get intimidated by mixed media techniques because they think that an art journal is a bit too big for them to use. So this is my art journal. I've got a flip through of it on the YouTube channel as well. I am one of the educators for Altenew, and I am on the mixed media design team as well. And I usually share videos on the Altenew YouTube channel twice a month, and there usually is almost always a art journal. And a lot of these tutorials are already up on the YouTube channel if you wanted to watch them. And what I like to do is I like to look back at my art journals and get inspiration from them. And this is basically a really inexpensive scrapbook album that I got. I think it only cost me like £1 or £2, and this was really, really cheap. And what I usually do is I cut my pieces of paper down. I work on a surface like this. I cut it down and then I stick it into my art journal page. So my mixed media looks like a 5-year-old did it. Well, so did mine in the beginning. And well, let's see what happens today. Maybe it will look like a 2-year-old did it today. But let's see what happens. So I was going through my art journals and I came across this art journal page that I did a couple of months ago. And I thought, how can I make this better? Because when I made this, I was happy with it, but I thought that it could be better. So I'm going to take some of the basic principles from this art journal page and make another art journal page, but maybe use different colors as well. So I think you guys really love that green. So we will use that green. And now I have my swatch here ready to refer to so that I can decide what colors to use. So if we're going to use this green, I kind of want to use this blue as well. And I am thinking maybe we can incorporate this one as well. So the colors that I am using are just green, and then this is yellow ochre, and then I have ultramarine. And it's important to work with colors that will work well together. Like for example, if I use the green with the purple, then I might get something muddy. Or if I use the orangey color, this is the orange cream. If I use that with blue, I will get brown. So oftentimes I get a lot of comments that say that that people tend to get muddy colors when they're doing mixed media. So when you're doing mixed media, it's really, really important to pare down your supplies so that you're using as few supplies as needed, so then you're getting less overwhelmed. And that will mean your work will be much more cleaner, simpler, and you will learn from the process as well. So mixed media to me is complete freedom. And I just absolutely love letting go and just really enjoying myself and enjoying the process. And you know what? If you mess up, it's just paper. So to start off, I am just going to apply the watercolor marker in swatches. And you've got these little areas where on the pen that says push. And if you very gently push on that, then it dispenses a bit more ink. And what I'm doing is I'm doing it directly onto the paper. If that's something that scares you, what you can do is you can put your ink onto an acrylic block and use a brush and then apply it on. So there's always a workaround. There's no right way to do things. I can show you the way that I like to do things, and I can tell you what the rules are, but rules, in my opinion, are made to be broken. So even though I did say that some colors, if you mix them together, they will make brown, I would say, why not go ahead and just try and have a play? Because even brown can be beautiful when used with purpose. So, mixed media is all about freedom and just having a play and just experimenting and letting yourself be free. Be free to enjoy yourself and not have that self judgment. So I'm taking the next color. This is one of my favorite blues. This is ultramarine, and I am moving the brush markers into that still slightly wet green as well, so that the colors are blending in slightly. Now, the temptation would be to cover the whole thing. And another one of the comments I get and questions I get are, how do I incorporate more white space into my mixed media? Now, with mixed media, again, I'm going to say something really controversial, is that I believe in the less is more approach to mixed media. I mean, if you want to use everything at the same time and you're loving it and you're enjoying yourself, then I would say mission accomplished. If you're having fun, then that's all that matters. But with my style of mixed media, I like to have some white space, because when you have that white space, you're letting your design breathe a little bit as well. I can see some really familiar faces as well from the Netherlands and from Toronto. My goodness, we have a very international audience here. Pakistan, Netherlands, Switzerland, Sweden. Wow. So at this point, I've got these two colors, and I'm thinking, do I want to introduce a third color or do I keep it two toned? So at this point, it's a little bit, uh, it looks nice. It looks nice, but I'm going to maybe up it a notch. And I'm going to add some marks. So now these brush markers, you can use them for watercoloring as well, but I especially love them for mark making. And I'm rubbing the brush markers into the other colors as well. And I'm getting some of that lifted color onto my brush, which is fine. And if you get any other color onto your brushes, then all you do is you just wipe it off on a clean piece of cardstock and they're good as new. The watercolor markers are dye-based, which is what makes them so richly pigmented. And because they are dye-based, you can do all sorts of fun techniques with them as well. And actually, I just had an idea. See, this is what happens when I start doing mixed media stuff. I start getting ideas and like, oh, what will that do if I use this and this together and stuff like that. So I'm just re-wetting that area. And what will happen is, let me just grab a napkin and I should be able to lift some of that ink as well. But we will do something else which you guys might find interesting. So let me know in the comments, do you guys have these brush markers? You don't have to have this set, but do you have any? And do you like them? Or do you have any questions about them? And I'm just going to continue adding more marks. And what I like to do is I like to keep my elements in odd numbers. Actually, I quite like how these colors have turned out. So now all I can do is I'm just cleaning off any residue dyeing onto my paper, just to make sure that there's nothing on there. So now we have our background. And now we can try something fun now. So I just had a thought that because these are dye inks, I'm just going to dip my hand into this water, going to have some droplets of water in my hands, and I'm just going to splatter them over these swatches of ink. And then what you see is, because these are dye inks, I don't know if you can see that they're starting to react with the water. And what I can do at this point is I can lift back some of that color, and that will bring in some extra dimension and texture into your color without having to introduce any new colors. You can do this with white ink as well. You could also use jet black ink. There's a white spray ink as well that you can use. And if you're using white, just keep in mind that because, again, this is dye ink, your white might become slightly tinted, which can be a beautiful effect. So what are we going to do next? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn my heat tool on, and I'm going to make sure that this is really, really dry. And then what I like to do is I like to turn it over and heat it from the back as well. And that helps to minimize any warpage. Now, if you wanted to, you can use watercolor paper as well. It comes in a larger pad and a smaller A2 size as well. But I wanted to use thick cardstock for this demonstration because it is smooth. But the watercolor paper is smooth as well. So if you've got that, you can use that as well if you don't have thick cardstock. So now I've got my background ready to go. Now, what do we do with this? So I am going to bring my trimmer over, and we are going to cut this down to size. So my art journal pages are usually 6 by 8. So I'm just going to chop this down. So I'm just going to see, do I like this part to be my art journal page, or do I want this part to be my art journal page? Actually, I think I like this one more. So I'm just going to chop that down. That was 6, and then just going to cut this in 8, and that is my art journal page. And what I can do with this is I am going to trim this down so that I can use this to make cards. So this I've chopped down into 5 1/4 by 4, because that's the size that I like to do for card panels to fit onto an too hard. And within a few minutes, you've already got an art journal background ready, and you've got two backgrounds as well ready to make art cards with. So what we're going to do for now is that if we have time, we're going to finish these ones off. So I'm going to set these to the side for now, and we are going to do some, let's do some, use some embossing paste. So this is one of my favorite Altenew stencils. This is called On the Plus Side. As you can see, it's very well loved. It has some mixed media ink dried on it, so it is clean. So I won't be hopefully transferring any extra mediums onto it. Now I want to do some paste, embossing paste. So I'm thinking I really love how I have all of this white space going, and then I want to introduce some more metallic elements. So I am going to be doing one of my favorite techniques, which is use embossing powder over embossing paste. So I have the Altenew embossing paste. This is one of my favorite embossing pastes to use, and I would highly suggest is that when you use your embossing paste, make sure that you clean it around the rim and then close it. Otherwise, you might risk the chance of permanently sealing your jar of embossing paste shut. Don't ask me why I know that. I may have possibly done that in the past. And then what I'm going to do is I am not going to cover the whole thing, but I'm just going to apply the paste in sections. And I'm going to apply it really, really roughly. And it's almost like, and I'm going to put the rest of that back in the jar for now and just feather the edges of this out. And then you can just carefully lift that. And let's do the other side. So sometimes it's better to just twist the paper rather than, you know, move your hand around, because you might risk the the design getting smudged. So then that's out of the way. Rather than me reaching over the paper, I just simply flipped my paper around. Have you guys used embossing paste before? Hey, Drifa. Hello, my lovely friend. And I am just applying the embossing paste. Again, I've put the rest back in the jar because you can add more afterwards, but it is difficult to take it away because it is opaque and you might run the risk of smudging your design too much. And just be really careful and just lift it up. And as I mentioned before, because I've got dye ink underneath, you can see that the green and the other colors are slowly coming up into the embossing paste, which is quite nice in my opinion, because then that gives you some really pretty tone on tone effects. And then what I'm going to do is I am just going to set my stencil to the side because this has embossing paste on it, and I'm going to wrap it in a damp wipe so that I can clean it afterwards, because you do not want any of the embossing paste drying into your stencil, because then otherwise that might ruin it. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do some heat embossing. So I've got a clean piece of copy paper underneath my art journal, and I'm going to take some rose gold embossing powder. You have never used embossing paste? Is it something different like molding paste? So different companies have different ways of how they market embossing paste. So it can be called texture paste or molding paste or embossing paste. I like Altenews embossing paste because it is flexible and it's the really nice thickness, and it works really, really well with Altenews stencils. So there you can see, while the embossing paste was still wet, I sprinkled some embossing powder over the wet embossing paste, and that's what the embossing powder will stick to long enough for you to heat set it. Now at this point, you have two options. So you can either let that dry and then heat set it, which will give you a smoother finish, or you can heat set it now, which will give you a more textured effect. And I do love me some texture, and I am also an impatient person. So which means we are going to heat set this now. And then if you want, I still have some embossing powder sticking to parts of the background where it's still slightly damp, but that doesn't matter because this is a mixed media art journal page and we are not worried about perfection here. We're just having fun, playing with our inks and getting our hands messy. Look at me, I'm already covered in embossing paste. And we are going to heat set this now. So I'm just going to turn my heat tool on. And the best way to use embossing, to heat set embossing powder is you need to warm up your embossing powder first, your heat tool first, and then take it to your embossing powder, because otherwise it might make your embossing powder fly away. This is not the case with embossing paste here, because it's embossing paste is quite sticky and embossing powder does stay put. So let me just turn my heat tool on, and then I'm going to lift my art journal page a little bit as well, so that the air can circulate all around the paper, and so that it heats faster as well, rather than when it's laying flat. I don't know if you guys can see how the embossing powder is making the embossing paste bubble up, but I just really, really love that texture. I really love that texture of embossing powder over embossing paste. And while the page is still warm, I can just slightly bend my card so that it helps it to flatten out a little bit as well. Is Lidit online as well? Oh my goodness, it's been so hard, you guys, not being able to see our friends. And actually in June over here in the UK, the Altenew hosted a in-person workshop where you would get all these superstars like Lydia and Tasneem and Jen and Lilith, and they'd come in and do these demonstrations and run classes for us with all sorts of goodies. And it's just so nice to be able to see friends there and just have a laugh. And I hope that maybe next year those things can start up again. I know that there are some workshops that have started up in some shops. So hopefully we can have an Alter New Day again next year. So I've got my art journal background ready. I might come back to it and do something else, or I might leave it. Actually, I'll let you guys decide. I am actually kind of debating putting some splatters on, but you guys tell me whether I should leave it as it is or if I should add splatters. So let me know in the comments whether I should do some splatters or should I just let it be. Now we're gonna do some stamping. How are we doing? Oh my goodness, half an hour already gone. Half an hour already gone. Oh my goodness. Time flies when you are having fun. And I could talk about mixed media and art journaling and Alter New stamps all day long. So what I like to do is when I have all my supplies out, I like to have like a couple of stamps already like stamped and ready, so that if I feel like quickly doing something, then I've already got a stamped image to use so that I can just get down and get in some creative time in. And you can see that my stamps are very well loved, because this is one of my favorite stamps to use. Also used it in one of my classes for Alter New. If you're interested in any of my techniques, or you like my style of teaching, I have two classes on Alter New Academy which you can check out, called Demystifying Mixed Media and Demystifying Mixed Media Art Journals. The first one is really great for card makers as well. And for me, it's all about, you know, through my YouTube videos as well, it's all about making mixed media easy and just letting go and being really kind to ourselves and just enjoying the process. So I'm using Obsidian Pigment ink, which is oil-based, which is my all-time favorite stamping ink, especially for outlines. So I just missed a spot there. This is the joy of having a Misty. Honestly, guys, what did we do without Misties? Was it the dark ages without the Misty for us? So I'm just going to go over. Oh, I remember we used to have a stamp positioning tool. You know, it was this platform which had a foam feet. I think I might still have mine somewhere. So I'm just going to stamp these out, these beautiful flowers from Wild Flora. And that is stamped perfectly all right. I'm going to set this to the side and I will clean this afterwards. I promise I will clean this afterwards. Please don't judge me. But I do clean my stamps. I never put away my stamps without cleaning them. And then what you can do is you can watercolor on here, but because of how quickly time is flying by, I am slightly concerned. So what I did was, in true here is something I prepared earlier, I stamped out some images and die cut them as well with the matching die set. So in the matching die set, you get the two big flowers, and you also get the smaller flower shape as well, and you've got a small leaf shape as well, which you can die cut if you like as well, if you want to add that on. So for my art flower, I think maybe I want that there. Do I want this? I quite fancy this, guys. What do you think? What do you think? Because I think I want to do a sentiment either here or here. And I don't want to place my flower right in the center because that will make it boring. To make your art journal page interesting is I like to think of the rule of thirds, where you're basically dividing your page into thirds, and it's always nice to kind of offset your focal image so to make it look more interesting. Somehow that's more pleasing to the eye, or at least to my eye it's more pleasing. And I think I might add my sentiment there. Yeah, I'm going to add my sentiment there. So let's do some watercoloring. So for watercoloring, what I like to do is just grab a kitchen towel and just clean that off. So what I like to do with watercoloring is I'm going to be using the same colors that I used in the background, so that I'm not introducing like a third color, a fourth color into my composition, because I want the colors to be the same, and otherwise it might look too busy. And one of the fun things that I like to do is, what does it look like if you turn the page upside down? So if I had it like that, and ooh, Marsha. Okay, now I am confused. So should it be like dots facing up or dots facing down? What do you guys think? What do you guys think? The first one, so you like the first one and the daisy looking flowers more. So we have a unanimous vote there. So let me know whether you want the dots facing down or the dots facing up. You can decide that afterwards, but let's quickly do some cheating. So what I have here is, this is my favorite thing, and if I could help it, I would literally slather this on everything. So this is iridescent shimmery ink spray, and you need to shake it from side to side to make sure that it gets mixed. Okay, you guys are really confusing me. Dots down, dots up, top, down, down, up. I think it's a tie. I think it's a tie. Lydia, you will have to tell me what the majority thinks. I think Lydia is in charge here, so I will do as Lydia says. So what I'm doing is I have this really inexpensive little pipette thing. You can spray it onto a surface if you want, but I like using these because then I can just take out some of the medium and then put it on my stamping block here, and I'm going to use that as a palette. Now I don't know if you guys can see how shimmery that is, because it's just I just have no words. It's just delicious. It's just delicious. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to squeeze out some of that watercolor ink. You can get re-inkers for these as well and use those instead, and just use those as dyes. But I like to have both because I use these a lot personally. I use them a lot. So I have both the re-inkers and the brushes because that will give me the versatility of being able to use them both ways, in mixed media or in like artsy ways, like making marks. So I'm just having a look and seeing that I want to use those two brushes. So the two brushes, the artist brushes that I'm using, these are the size 0 and the 1. And what I'm going to do is I am going to be really, really roughly doing some watercoloring, but I'm not going to be super careful about it. And I will put down some of this yellow ochre as well on the side there, so that I have that there. So it's not really a big deal how you go about doing some watercoloring, because these watercolor brush markers, they make watercoloring really, really simple, even for a watercoloring beginner like me. So if you watch Iram's or even Lydia's videos, they do such a fantastic job with doing really intricate watercoloring. And I think I could probably learn how to do that if I sat down and actually practice it myself. But for now, I like using these these brush markers with paintbrushes to just quickly add in some shading. So I don't know if you can see what I'm doing is I just put down a lighter layer with that mixture of the shimmer down first, and while it was still wet, I am taking one of the darker color, which I isn't mixed in, and I'm just applying it to the ends, the inner part of the flowers, and just letting it blend by itself. I'm just letting the wet ink do the job by itself. Let me just have a quick look at the comments. Yeah, I this mixing the iridescent spray with all of the mediums is one of my favorite things to do. So you don't have to use them with just the watercolor brush markers. You could also do it with the uh, watercolors as well, the artist watercolors as well. Or if you have the metallic watercolors, you could just use those on their own as well. But I like having this iridescent shimmer because it looks stunning on black, in my opinion. I'll show you what it looks like on black in a bit. But it also is fantastic for mixing with different mediums like these dye inks. And just look at that. I mean, I'm sure I'm not doing a great job, but do you know what? This makes me incredibly happy. Just to sit here and just talk about the things I love and just do some painty messes. And I'm not being super careful, and some of it is going outside of the line, but I am not too bothered about that because life's too short and it's just paper. It's just paper. And trust me, when you're finished, you won't even notice where the mistakes are. So just to show you guys what it looks like on black, that once that dries, that looks so super shimmery. It's absolutely gorgeous. So I have two pots of water here. I don't know if you can see them. I'm not going to try to move them too much, Otherwise, I'd end up spilling them. And what I like to do is I like to initially clean my brush in one and then do it again in the other. I like doing this because it makes me feel like a professional painter. um, and this will help your inks to get clean, your paintbrushes to get really clean. But mostly, it makes me feel like a professional painter. I'm like, oh, I'm double cleaning my brushes. And I am just going to quickly, how are we doing for time? Oh, we are almost there. Actually, I was thinking how it might, I might finish too quickly, but I think we are going to finish this just in time, you guys. So, how's everyone doing? Everyone doing well? You gonna make some time today to do some crafting? Or have you got chores to do? I had a super busy day today, so kind of been running around. And this is actually, I was nervous. Honestly, I was nervous because this is the first time I'm doing a live for Old to New for a company that I really, really love. But this has been such a pleasure. And I'm looking forward to doing more. I'm actually booked to do more next month. And keep an eye on the All to New social media to hear more news about other lives that are taking place. You guys, of course, know there are lives every Monday and Thursday at this time, run by the fantastic team who do gorgeous works. And then, of course, I was really surprised to be invited because all I do is I like to make messes and have fun and geek out over art supplies and talk about how much I love the companies that I work with. Oh, you guys, you're so sweet. You are so sweet. Thank you so much for all your lovely comments. And let me know if you guys tune in regularly. And so just finishing. I just quickly get to the end because I don't want to bore you guys. And here we go. Do I want to add more? Maybe I want to add. And again, I'm going to clean my paintbrush in the first one and then in the second one because that makes me feel really fancy. And then let's do the centers as well. See, that completely changes the look of the watercolor brush markers because that's what these colors look like on their own, pure. But when you add the beautiful iridescent shimmer spray, you get this amazing, like, really dimensionality coming through. So actually, I just had an idea, which might be potentially dangerous, that I might use some of that mixture as splatters. So I'm just going to carefully set that to the side so that I don't end up sticking my elbow in it. But knowing me, I probably might, because I can be really clumsy sometimes. So, okay, so was it 50-50, Lydia? Or was it, which side are we doing? Is it side up or side down? I'm just looking at the comments, and okay, so it looks like it's 50-50. Okay, Lydia says okay, so up. So dots are up. So the people have spoken. The people have spoken. So I'm just gonna put that here, but before I stick that down, let's put our sentiment on first. Stamp our sentiment. So let's have a look at the stamp set and see which sentiment will work the best. So Alternate sentiments, what I really love about them is that they're not just fantastic for cards, they are fantastic for art journals as well. And with a little bit of creative imagination, you can use them for art journals as well. So I don't know if you guys can tell, but there is chaos all around my desk. Within the frame, we look reasonably organized, but around the desk, we have chaos. So let me just put this to the side. So I am not, did I get any? No, I did not. I was just scared I got some ink on my hands because we don't want any smudges on our nice, clean and simple art journal page. So I'm just going to put my magnet there for now. So this sentiment says, friends are like flowers, they bring color to your world, which I think is appropriate because when you have colleagues and people that you get to know in this industry through your work, through your travels, through just simply going to classes, who become friends, it's such a blessing because I don't know if you guys can tell, I've got some friends in the chat who've come to support me, and I really appreciate them so much that this art journal page is dedicated to my friends. Friends are like flowers, they bring color to your world. So just be really careful with the pigment ink because this is oil-based, so it might not dry as fast as the dye inks. So just be careful. You can heat set it, but I'm just going to let that dry on its own. And I am using some foam tape to stick down my flower. So up one. That's brilliant. Thanks for pointing that out, Marcia. It was pretty close for a minute because I was like, oh my God, what do I do? So I am not putting the foam tape on every single part of the flower, only around the main solid part, the flowers and the leaves. You can if you want, but I don't mind because this is going to go in my art journal and it might flatten out just a tiny bit, but the foam tape will give it an extra bit of dimension. So we are placing it there. And we didn't do the splatters because we ran out of time. But here is a finished look at the art journal page. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video and my demonstration. Let me just flip the camera around. And hey everyone, oh my goodness, thank you so much for joining. And thank you for all the lovely comments and for your support. I really appreciate it. Follow us on Facebook and on YouTube and on all channels, and do make sure to visit the Altenew blog today. We've had a new standalone diary release which you can check out. There's tons of prizes available and loads of inspiration as well. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Thank you so much, especially to Lydia, for inviting me to join you guys. And until next time, take care and have a fantastic day. I hope that you take the time to do something that gives you joy today. Take care and have a great day. Bye.